You'll want to head to the thrift store for a couple of old shutters when you see how enchanting this indoor idea turned out. I'm starting with a pretty antique mirror I had in my stash. I'm arranging the shutters on both sides of the mirror and a row of hooks along the bottom to get a feel for the design I'm going for. Since my shutters are doubled up, I'm going to separate them, making the shutters with the little knobs my priority. Before I hang the mirror, I'm giving it a good clean, then removing the original hanging hardware from the back. Noting where the mirror glass ends, I'm drilling 2 holes through the wood mirror frame. To help support the mirror weight while being installed, I'm stacking 2 benches to give the mirror the appropriate height I'm going for. I'm now deciding to mount the shutters without the brackets by drilling holes into the tops of each one instead. The brackets would have created a gap against the mirror unless I removed the mirror first, so this was just easier. Either way would have worked though. I'll just paint the screws white. Reaching for 2 black painted wooden shelf brackets, I'm attaching them to each side of the mirror. I'm now placing an antique crate on top of the brackets to create a window box effect. I'm now screwing the row of hooks to the front of the crate. This saves me from making lots of hook holes in the antique crate that I'd like to preserve as much as possible. After loading up the crate with a full wreath and plants I had in my stash, this plain mirror now has all the ambiance of a quaint outdoor window thanks to the shutters and crate window box. The row of hooks will come in so handy for an entryway, or hanging towels in a bathroom, clothing in a bedroom, or wherever you wish.
Here's a really cool way to repurpose some shutters. Give your shutters a good wipe down to remove any dirt or debris and make sure there's no bugs. Cut down your wood to length. I'm using a miter saw, but you can use a circular saw or jigsaw. Give your boards a quick sand to make sure they're smooth and ready for paint or stain. Place the boards on the shutters with the smooth side facing forward, and using wood screws, attach the boards to the shutters. Decide where you want your shelf to be. I place mine towards the bottom, and if you want, you can add more than one shelf here. Measure the board for the bottom and attach it using brad nails or wood. Now it's time for paint. You can either paint by hand before attaching the boards or after using a paint sprayer, as I did. Pick a paint stain or color to add some contrast to the top or leave it natural. Add some cute decor and voila, you've got yourself a cute side table or a plant stand.
I grabbed this set of large house shutters from Facebook Marketplace, and here's how I turned them into something both beautiful and functional. I cut them in half, removed the nails, cleaned them, although I did like the rustic look, so I decided not to paint them. I screwed them together with the 2 taller pieces at the back. I made sure to pre-drill with a drill bit, and then I secured them with 3 2-inch screws along each side. And I left both pieces open at the back so that I could easily add the boards for a shelf. And that's how I converted these old shutters into a shelf. So easy. I hope this inspires you to get creative with old shutters. Thank you for watching Home Talk, and see you next time.
Today's project is going to feature this beautiful vintage shutter. We're going to put that to the side, and I'm going to pull out an ordinary canvas drop cloth. That is what we're going to be making some of our organizational pouches out of. So canvas drop cloth is great for DIY and crafting. I do recommend that you go ahead and give it a hot wash and dry so that it shrinks up. And then now it's time to measure. So I laid out my shutter and I knew exactly what size pouches I want to make. And so whatever size your shutter ends up being, just make sure you make your proper measurements and cut here. I'm using pinking shears just to kind of reduce some of the fraying. Not 100% necessary. You could use regular scissors for this step. But I'm going to get it all cut out, and I'm actually going to create 2 pouches. And then the next step after we're done cutting all this out is going to be to glue the sides together to create faux seams. Now, if you are a seamstress, you absolutely could sew this project, but I'm going to be using the Sure Bonder fabric glue sticks on a low temp glue gun. So there I'm going ahead and putting it on the sides of the pouches to glue them down. I did create a lip at the top of my pouch just for some extra strength for the fabric. I love the canvas because it's super durable, but just that added strength for, since I'm going to be hanging paperwork and mail and stuff like that. Okay, so once you've got it all glued, you're actually going to flip it inside out. All right, next, like I said, we're going to pull out our shutter. It's a big one now. You may end up choosing a smaller one for your liking, but I had this beautiful French New Orleans shutter in my vintage stash, and I couldn't wait to create something with it. So I'm going to lay out my pouches, and then I have some other vintage elements that I'm going to use on this entryway piece. I have a vintage decorative molding piece at the top and a vintage mirror that I have turned into a chalkboard. Next, I'm going to grab my drill. It has a square head bit, drill bit on it right now because I'm using some pocket hole screws, which are very nice because number one, they keep you from having to make pilot holes for your drill, for your screw to go in, but they're also decorative because they're a beautiful bronze color. So I think they'll really tie into my vintage Southern kind of theme I have going here. So the most important part about screwing a screw into fabric is to keep the fabric near where your screw is going in really nice and taut. That way your fabric doesn't try to spin up into your screw. If you don't try to do this, it will try to spin up into your screw. You will see. All right, I'm just going to get the last of these screws in here on this second pocket. Like I said, it's coming together beautifully. I'm keeping my fabric kind of pulled tight. One of my pockets is a little bit deeper than the other. I did that just because I was thinking about paperwork and things like that that might be put in there that would be a little bigger. Now, I also have these beautiful antique library kind of labels. They're vintage inspired reproduction, but I just use a little hot glue to glue them on the front of each pocket. And I'm going to be able to slip a little piece of cardstock in those to change out the labels whenever I like. So that's going to be fun. Now I'm going to use those other 2 pocket hole screws that I told you I had. And I'm going to place those just in the center. And I have a little bit of hanging rope on the back of that decorative molding and on the back of that chalkboard mirror. And that's just going to be what hangs on my pocket hole screw. Next, I had these little hooks lying around, and I thought, you know, we always have some extra keys around the house, either in a bowl or in a tray somewhere, and I thought it'd be nice to have them hanging up. So I'm just going to measure out that they're properly spaced and get those nailed in as well. I did have to drill some pilot holes for these because I was not using screws, so I'm just drilling little tiny pilot holes to let the nail go in easier. Now, these took a little persuasion to get in. I had to do some gentle yet forceful tapping, but I got all 3 of them in and they look lovely and they are holding nicely. So our design is complete. It looks amazing. I really, really, really love all the vintage elements, the repurposing, the unexpected use of the canvas drop cloth. This would look great in any home or office. So I hope you're inspired to make one of your very own.